Hello, you're very welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and we're down a man this week. Miguel is on England squad announcement duties. That big announcement by Gareth Southgate. I think it's 2 o'clock this afternoon, so Miguel is just fully focused on that. So keep an eye on his social channels for news on that. But I'm delighted to welcome our regular duo of Adrian Clarke and Mark O'Hare. Guys, welcome along. Adrian, how are you keeping? Arsenal last night were disappointing.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. I think that it was a pretty even game, but Brighton were much more dangerous going forward. And what that game I think taught us, taught Miguel Delaney potentially is that the guys that are outside of the first 11, there is probably too big a drop off at the moment in terms of quality. So hopefully there'll be a couple of additions in January that can potentially remedy that.
Yeah, then it'll be very interesting, the January transfer window post-World Cup. Speaking of World Cup, Mark, are you delighted the club football is nearly over so you can fully focus on the big tournament coming up now next Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I wish the club season would carry on, to be honest. I've been quite enjoying it, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but a Winter World Cup doesn't do it for me, particularly when we've got less than a week's break, basically, between the Premier League ending and the World Cup starting. So, yeah, it's been hard trying to juggle domestic stuff with the international stuff, but I've prepped everything. It's just now kind of actually getting the bets on and kind of writing up my opinions, shall we say, and looking forward to the next week's show, and we sort of discuss all the major markets on the World Cup. But it's been tough.
Yeah, and Mark touched on it there. Tuesday, 5 p.m, we'll have a live World Cup anti-post preview next Tuesday, about 5 or 6 days ahead of the World Cup. So just when you have the Premier League weekend over and you can start tuning into the World Cup, there's no better preview out there than myself, Mark, Adrian, and Miguel. Tuesday, 5 p.m. So put that in the diaries. So we'll get straight into it. Because there's only 3 of us today, we're going to have to cover 5 marquee games from the final Premier League weekend until Stevenson's Day or Boxing Day. So we'll take a look at the first one, and it's Tottenham versus Leeds United. The look of the betting as we currently have it on Matchbook.com. You can back Tottenham at 1.67, Leeds 5.6. The draw is available at 4.5 or 7-2. Both teams to score yes is 1.71, no is 2.28. Leeds are getting a 1-goal head start at 1.83, and the total is 3.0, shaded a bit to the under. Adrian, we'll go to you first. I guess this is, look, like we're going to say this about every game. I guess it's a big game before the final game before the World Cup, but you do feel with Conte's, they've been booed off the last couple of times, particularly at halftime. You feel it's a huge game for Antonio Conte.
I would, yeah. It is. The pressure's starting to build, isn't it, on him and the players. They've only won 2 of their last 7 in the Premier League. Obviously, they were beaten by Forest. They put out a pretty decent team, I've got to say, at the City Ground. So that goes down as a really bad night as well. So yeah, they're not in a good place. Lost 3 of the last 4 in the Premier League, of course. But this is Leeds at home, and at their own stadium, Tottenham, this is the kind of fixture they have actually been winning. They've dropped just 1 point against bottom half sides so far this season, home or away. And at home, they've got that perfect record against teams that are outside the top 10. So this is a fixture that they have been, maybe not always convincingly winning, but they have been getting over the line. And I just feel it's such a big game for them that there will be a real strong focus on getting the job done. I don't think it's going to be pretty. Ordinarily, I would look at this fixture and say goals, absolutely goals. Every Leeds game, you have to say goals, don't you? Really, they're such a wild, chaotic team under the manager. So, but because of the importance to Spurs, because of their experience, I just wonder whether they will be able to sort of tame that sort of swinging beast that is Leeds United at the moment. I mean, they leave themselves open for knockouts, don't they, Leeds? But they keep coming back for more with some big punches of their own. So will they be able to do that away to Spurs is the big question, in my opinion. I know they won at Anfield, but think about that game and think about how well Meslier played, how poor Liverpool's finishing was, how many chances Liverpool created in that match, and you think, well, that was slightly fortuitous. So yeah, I don't know if they're good enough, Leeds, to go to Tottenham and cause an upset. What I will say is that the Leeds +1 did catch my eye here.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because it wouldn't have lost us money in 11 of 13 matches this season. Only twice have they been beaten by more than one goal. Leeds United. They've stayed in games. They've produced quite a few wins, a few draws in there as well. So Leeds +1 is worth a look at, in my opinion, as is the goals angle. But for me, just because of the importance of this match to Tottenham, and the fact that I just don't see this run going on and on and on, that they might be able to come good here. After Leeds are still not good at the back. They've conceded 12 goals in their last 6 matches in the Premier League, albeit they've been scoring a lot. But defensively, pretty average teams are carving Leeds open. And with Kulusevski probably back, Richarlison probably back, that they should be a better proposition, Spurs, inside the final third. So my pick would be Spurs plus Spurs and over 1.5 goals. That's my selection here. But yeah, Leeds on the handicap or the goals angle are ones to consider too.
Yeah, it's a tough one probably to call. And Adrian touched on that goals angle, Mark, and that's where you're attacking this game from a betting point of view.
Yeah, it is a tough game to call. I think from a Tottenham perspective, how much trust can I put into them right now? And the opposition do lend itself to be pretty pro-Spurs, and I would sort of back up Adrian with that selection at the price, because I'm sort of taking over 2 3/4 goals at 179, and if there is to be 3 or more goals, you assume Spurs will take at least 2 of them. But I wanted to sort of bring things a different sort of narrative towards the table, really, which is something we've talked about, but it's been highlighted a lot in the press. Really, is the slow starts from Spurs. They're inviting pressure on, showing very little in forward areas, and then obviously releasing the shackles when they have to try and turn the tide. And that's not been happening enough lately. Really, they've been handicapping themselves. Injuries obviously played a part, but the approach has to be questioned. And yeah, second half against Liverpool, you could say they probably did merit a point, but you can't keep giving teams head starts and expecting to be able to pick up points. And it's 3 defeats in 4. They've lost back-to-back home games. They've trailed by at least 2 goals in their last 4. They've conceded first in 7 of the last 8 across all comps, and they've not even scored before half-time in the last 7. So, I don't think it's wild to suggest something similar could occur on Saturday and Spurs kind of roar back and get a result out of this game. Kulusevski will make a world of difference. We saw that in the second half. But, Conte was talking about how tired his team were midweek against Forest, and because of his lack of options, he had to play Kane for an hour. So they are down to, well, not say the bare bones, because they're Tottenham. They should have a squad capable enough of competing, but they are feeling the fatigue. And I think Leeds are a kind of team who will be proactive and will thrive in chaos, and probably clearly will be the fitter team of the two as well. So they can produce moments of magic themselves. But I think Spurs will probably fancy their chances of providing a knockout blow on the counter-attack. And if you do look at Leeds, you look at the players who are making the difference recently. Willie Gnotto last week, Greenwood, Gelhardt, Somerville. They're all very young, so very raw, hard to sort of trust them. And I can't trust Leeds, to be honest, over 90 minutes, and particularly that defence that's kept 2 clean sheets and conceded twice or more in 5 of the last 8. So I looked at the goals angle because it kind of don't have to worry who wins the game, and just cheer on goals in it. And Spurs themselves have managed just 4 clean sheets in the Premier League this season, only 2 in their last 10, and it's 3 clean sheets in 13 when you include the Champions League. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see both teams scoring. But the alternative angles here at bigger prices, if you do fancy Leeds to come out of the traps firing and Spurs to sort of start slowly again, you can get Leeds +0 in the first half Asian handicap at 3.2. Basically, literally to draw no bet in the first half at 3.2. Alternatively, if you want to be really adventurous, there's 25 to 1 on the flip-flop of Leeds, Spurs in the half-time, full-time market. So Leeds to lead at half-time and Spurs to win the match, 25 to 1. If you fancy a bit of beer money, just to have a bit of an interest on Spurs starting slowly again.
Yeah, that's some couple of interesting plays there. The half-time, full-time, I used to bet regularly on that market to try and crack it a couple of years ago. Similar to you, Mark, with the 25 to 1 angle, but unfortunately sometimes the team will go 2-0 down, 3-0 down, 4-0 down, and then you end up going, well, it's halftime now. This isn't on. But interesting plays, I have to say. I think we'll lock in the goals angle over 2 3/4 goals, 1.79 currently. I think that's a good way of doing it. Adrian, you touched on that as well. But it's a pretty exciting game for a 3 o'clock kickoff. So that's Tottenham versus Leeds. We'll move on to the second game. So we're doing this in order of the games that will be played. So this is the 5:30 game, Newcastle at home to Chelsea. Massive game here. Let's take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. You can back Newcastle at 2.42. Chelsea can be back to 3.2. The draw is available at 3.55. Both teams to score yes is 1.79 and no is 2.16. You can get Chelsea at plus a quarter of a goal at 1.88, and the goal line is 2.5, slightly shaded towards the under there. So yeah, Mark, we'll go to you. Like if I told you and showed you these prices at the start of the season, you just wouldn't believe me. And I think it just really shows the job Eddie Howe's been doing that. And you've been crunching some numbers over the week.
Yeah, well, we touched on Newcastle last week about their sort of remarkable season so far, and there was a lot of praise for Eddie Howe, quite rightly as well, because his coaching has really come to the fore. The confidence he's instilled in the squad and the improvements we've seen in the likes of Joelinton and Almiron, you really have to give him credit for that. And it's not just those two either. The likes of Longstaff and Cher and Willock have all featured prominently. So while there has been investment in the squad, he's also improved the players who were there beforehand. So they've done the investment pretty smartly and sensibly, I think. They've not gone and splashed silly figures, bar Isak, who's barely featured at all. So, but yeah, on Howe, he was considered to be an attack-minded coach who couldn't organise a defence at Bournemouth, but it's almost been the opposite at Newcastle. They've got the best defence in the league. They've lost the fewest Premier League matches this season, just one. They've already faced 4 of the big 6 as well. So he's excelling himself, and this week marks a year in charge for him at the helm. He's overseen 41 Premier League games, averaged 1.73 points per game. Extrapolate that over a 38-game season, Newcastle would expect to earn 66 points. Now, Arsenal finished 5th last season with 69 points. Since the beginning of 2022, Newcastle are only trailing Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal and Spurs in points earned. Spurs are only 2 points ahead, and Newcastle have a game in hand over them in the calendar year sort of rankings and ratings. So they are top 6 candidates right now. That's why they are sort of rating very shortly in the market. 4th on expected points, I have them 3rd at expected goals process too. They do kind of drip down a little bit when you look at open play figures, but that's balanced out by the fact that they have been the most effective in both boxes for set pieces in terms of XG. So there's a slight blow coming into this game. Joelinton is suspended, but I think there's enough about Newcastle to warrant support of Newcastle plus a 0, basically the same as the draw no bet at 1.73 against Chelsea. Just adds that this extra layer of insurance. They've drawn 6 games already this season, but they've only lost once. They've won 1, drawn 2, and lost 1 against the Big 6. The defeat came against Anfield when they were quite unlucky, and at home under Eddie Howe, 12 wins, 7 draws, 2 defeats. The 2 defeats were against Liverpool and City last season. They are very much a cohesive unit, playing very well right now. And Chelsea, you can say, aren't a cohesive unit. They're certainly still trying to find themselves under Graham Potter. The honeymoon period is definitely over. I think the earlier results papered over the cracks, where he's still trying to sort out the correct system, the correct personnel for Chelsea right now. We know he's a long-term appointment. We sort of plead for Chelsea to be patient. But if they keep churning out performances as they did against Arsenal last week and Brighton previously, questions will be asked right now. So only 5 clubs are having fewer shots at goal than Chelsea this season, which kind of shows a strange lack of invention, attacking abandon. So, they failed to win 7 of their opening 13. 5 of their 6 wins have come against bottom 8 teams. I've got them banging mid-table and expected points and XG as well. So if you kind of swapped the names around and gave Newcastle and Chelsea the opposition side's kind of underlying metrics and numbers, Chelsea would be odds on here. So, despite it being Newcastle at home to Chelsea, they're 2.4 to win the game, which is a fair price. Chelsea went off as outsiders at home to Arsenal last weekend, which shows the market doesn't really respect them right now. And I think I'm quite happy to get on board with Newcastle with that handicap start, the plus 0 start, acting basically as a draw no bet for play on the hosts at 1.73.
Yeah. Adrian, Mark touched on it there. Like, I think anyone who looks at their coupon on a Saturday morning and sees that price on Chelsea would probably be tempted. But I think Mark's kind of showed, and you've analysed the Chelsea-Arsenal game for Arsenal TV over the weekend as well, that Chelsea just aren't the same team they were at the start of the season.
Oh, it's one of the worst Chelsea performances I think I've ever seen. I mean, they offered pretty much nothing in terms of as an attacking force. I think their XG was under 0.3. Arsenal's was way over 2. The margin of victory should have been much, much wider. They were comprehensively outplayed, basically. That came on the back of being tonked by Brighton. Okay, they've much changed lineup at City in midweek, but they've gone down again. I think this was a more encouraging performance from mostly stand-ins for Graham Potter, but they're not in a good place, are they? They do have a good history in the fixture. Whether that counts for much, given Newcastle's new status as Big Six potential, I don't know. They've won 5 of the last 6 against Newcastle to 0, so it's the kind of match that they're professionally gone about their work in a business-like fashion. So, but do we really expect that to happen this time? I don't think so. As Mark touched on, that they're not creating enough chances to worry Newcastle or to put them under proper strain in this game. St James's Park is alive, isn't it? The fans are absolutely loving it. It's a difficult place for anybody to go at the moment, and I think Newcastle can make this really, really hard for Chelsea. 4 times in the last 7 matches in the Premier League, Newcastle have scored 4 or more goals. I mean, when was the last time that happened? I mean, it's probably never happened. Not even in the Keegan glory days. I wouldn't have thought they'd scored 4 or more in 4 of 7. It's crazy, really. But that's the confidence that they're performing with. I'm not saying they're going to smash Chelsea. I would have thought it would be a much more low-scoring affair, this one. But I'm with Mark on the draw no bet for Newcastle. It's still at a backable price. I'd be tempted by Newcastle, I've got to say, even though it's historically short for them. It's still, given their home record, I'd be tempted, but just to back them on the nose. But Newcastle draw no bet looks safest to me.
Yeah, and 2.42, that price on Newcastle does seem tempting. I think the guys have kind of shown that the markets are trying to catch up on how good Newcastle are, but maybe they're not quite there yet, and there's a bit of value. But we'll lock in that draw no bet. Newcastle at 1.71, I think. So that's as we currently have it. So we'll move on to the third game. This is the Saturday night game, 7:45. It's Wolves versus Arsenal. And take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Wolves at 6.8. Arsenal are 1.57, and the draw is available at 7-2 or 4.5. Both teams to score yes is 1.91. No is 1.99. Wolves are getting a 1-goal head start on the Asian handicap line at 1.97, and the total is 2 3/4. Mark, we'll go back to you on this one. We've covered a lot of Arsenal at home and the stats. Are you nervy going into this game with a team like Arsenal, given some of their away track record over the past seasons, or is this just a completely new team now and you need to kind of reassess them?
Yeah, I think the latter for sure. And I think last weekend was a massive statement for me and many others, really, that Arsenal are the second best team in the country right now and are very much pushing City.
Who's top, Mark? Who's top?
I saw the quizzical look, Adrian.
Yeah. Even you Gooners would admit that City are the best team on the planet. So, yeah, I mean, they're going about their business in the right way. Chelsea were very, very poor, but Arsenal contributed to that last weekend. I thought they executed a supreme game plan. It was very hard to fault the final score. They gave next to nothing away, created plenty of meaningful moments of their own. Really, really impressive. Saka was a threat. He had Cucurella on strings, and Martinelli and Jesus linked up brilliantly down the other opposite flank. Really super solid at the back. I think they've now conceded only 4 goals in the last 7, one of which was a penalty. They won the midfield battle again. It was as close to a perfect away performance as you can get in a trip to a Big Six rival, really. So you have to respect them, and you have to respect the body of work that they've done so far this season. We talk about small samples, but now we're 14 match days deep, and you have to start kind of coming around to the idea that Arsenal are good, and they're certainly contenders now. But yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to give them the benefit of the doubt coming into this match, and I'm happy to back them to win the game alongside over 1.5 goals at 1.87, but basically ruling out the 1-0 away win. I know they have tended to be a bit more restrained and a bit more controlled and conservative on the road under Arteta for the most part, but I think they will benefit from a Wolves team who have been a lot more loose since Bruno Lage left. Steve Davis is obviously the interim coach, and Julian Lopetegui isn't in charge yet. So Davis was critical of his team's defending last week. It was pretty shocking, really. They obviously were down to 10 men for large parts of that game, but they created a lot, but they also gave away a huge amount of opportunities as well, even before the red card, and probably fortunate to only concede 3 goals against Brighton. And that's the concern, really, that the centre-half partnership has gone to pieces. They've conceded 2 goals or more in 6 of the last 8. They've conceded 3 goals or more in 4 of those 8 as well. Their only wins this season have come against the bottom 3. They lost home and away against Arsenal last season. So, you think Wolves have probably regressed. Well, they certainly have regressed. Arsenal have massively improved. no reason why Arsenal can't go and beat them again. So, yeah, I'll back them to win and over 1.5 goals. Just ruling out the 1-0 win.
Yeah, Mark, I do have to give you a shout out on the Premier League Anti-Post podcast. You did put up Wolves for relegation at about 7.0, I think it was, on Matchbook. So definitely got the value there, despite a few pelters as well on social media for that opinion. Adrian, you're coming at this from a very slightly different angle. I know Mark wants to rule out the 1-0, but you think Arsenal are solid at the back over the last few weeks?
Well, they are, aren't they? On the road, especially five clean sheets from 7. So there's a lot of wins to nil in that sort of that away column this season from Arsenal, and they're playing Wolves, who scored the fewest goals. They're the worst finishers in the Premier League. The conversion rate is it's so low. It's scarcely believable. It's 4.8%. It's shocking. I know that
just on the 4.8%. What would be a typical average chance conversion?
But average would be around 10, 11, 12, and the top end would be sort of 17, 18 to up to 20, really. So way behind. Compared to a team like Arsenal, I think have got a very good finishing rate, or City. They need 4 more shots to score each goal, basically. So
I think the general rule you try to look to is normally goals are scored every sort of 12 or 13 shots, and it's about 4.5 shots on target or around 4 shots on target tend to average out to equal a goal. But Wolves is pretty shocking.
Yeah, it's not great. So they're up against a team that's been a bit lightweight up front. I know they've scored a few more goals of late, but they're shipping a lot more than normal, aren't they? A lot of their games have gone overs recently. They've only won 1 of their last 8, as Mark says. They've conceded 3 or more in half of those games. That's not the best, when you consider what they'd done before. I mean, the only wins they've had this season, Wolves, have been at home to Southampton and Forest. 2 teams entrenched in that sort of relegation battle, and they were both 1-0ers at home. So I don't give them a lot of chance here. In that Brighton game, by the way, Brighton had 8 shots on target. Scored 3, didn't they, in the 3-2 win? I think there was 19 shots. So that shows you how loose Wolves are at the moment. So I think Arsenal will score. Well, Arsenal have scored in every game so far this season. I think that they'll continue that here, get at least 1, probably 2 or 3. And then you say, well, can you keep another clean sheet? I think they can. Obviously, it's not easy to keep clean sheets in the Premier League, but they're more than capable. This is really a price-based selection. Because I think that Marks is probably a more safer pick. But looked at the price of this, Arsenal to win to 0, given that they've won to 0 5 times on the road out of 7 already this season, 2.7. I think that's quite a jump, isn't it, in value that you're getting? So just for shot shy Wolves to misfire again, I'm 100% tempted by that.
Yeah, I think we'll lock that in. It'd be good to have a play like that. 2.7 does seem quite big. So that's Arsenal and both teams to score no. You'll find that at the Matchbook in the other markets section. So we'll move on to Sunday, and then this will be the final day of Premier League action. I can see Sky just staying on the air all day long and really milking it because they'll have no live football for 6 weeks. But anyway, Brighton versus Aston Villa. Let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Brighton at 1.89, Aston Villa at 4.5, and the draw is available at 3.94. You can back both teams to score yes at 1.85. No is currently 2.02. The Asian handicap line gives Aston Villa a half a goal start at 2.06, and the total is 2.5 goals, and that's slightly shaded towards the over. So, Adrian, we'll stick with you on this one. You really like Brighton here and at home, and you think they're a backable price at 1.9.
I do, yeah. I looked at goals because you feel that there are goals in Brighton matches now. Never used to be the case, did it? But De Zerbi is a positive coach. I think we are starting to see that. I'm really liking Mitoma, who came on, didn't he, last night, Dan, and looked pretty sharp, I've got to say, for the Seagulls. Trossard is in outstanding form. A lot of their forward players are clicking at the moment. As I said, they had 9 shots on target at Wolves last weekend, backing up that 4-1 win against Chelsea. They've gone to Emirates in midweek with sort of half a first team, and they've scored 3 goals. So it's that they are firing on all cylinders at the moment, very much more attack minded. Less safe at the back, it's got to be said, which is why goals angle is interesting. 9 conceded in the last 3, 11 conceded in the last 5. So yeah, the clean sheets have dried up a bit for Brighton, but they look a threat going forward. Villa play tonight. I mean, that's it's an extra day's rest. It feels like quite a short turnaround. They're away at Manchester United. We don't know how strong Unai Emery will go in that game, of course, but it's a tough start for them. I know it was a good win, really good win against Manchester United. Excellent. But then to go to Manchester United in your next game, and then to go to Brighton, one of the form teams in the division, and to get a result there, it feels like a tough week to me. I like what the setup. I have to say that Emery came up with the 4-2-2-2. I think it really suits the personnel that they've got. He's a counter-attacking manager. He's about the transitions. We know that. And that's what they'll try and do here. And I do think that is the right shape for them. But he's got to fix some rotten away form. I think 2 points in 7 away wins. Scored 3, conceded 15 on the road this season. I mean, a team that scored 3 on the road all season doesn't fill me with too much hope. And I wouldn't guarantee that they'd score here either. So, all things considered, I just moved away from over 2.5 goals to Brighton on the nose at 1.9. I think they have what it takes to beat Villa, who are in transition. It's not going to be all plain sailing just because Emery's there.
Yeah, and obviously they had that impressive first home performance prior to Emery, and then lost heavily on the road to Newcastle.
Yes.
Mark, Adrian touched on goals angles, which is where you're leaning here for a bet and play.
Yeah, really looking forward to this game. He's not been in his position long, but we're already starting to see the difference that Roberto De Zerbi's team are compared to Graham Potter. Certainly seeing characteristics of his famous Sassuolo side. They're pressing higher, they're playing much more quicker in possession, much more direct, and that doesn't mean sort of long balls. It just means moving the ball faster towards the opposition goal. They've been more expansive, fluid, adventurous, and that's been sort of borne out in the raw numbers, really. Sort of embracing the chaos as we talk about Leeds, really. They've got back-to-back wins, but in their 7 games under De Zerbi, they scored 3 or more on 3 occasions. They also conceded 2 goals or more on 4 occasions too. So it's been really good fun to follow. And I think the new sort of Brighton was kind of characterised by last week's trip to Wolves. I know they played against 10 men for a large part of that, but 12 different players had a shot at goal in that match, which was remarkable, really. The exceptions were Billy Gilmore, who came on after the 82nd minute, and Joel Veltman, who came on in the 90th minute. So 7 of those 12 players even hit the target and created numerous chances as well. So, Brighton very much pretty loose, but pretty gung-ho these days. And, we saw what they're capable of when they battered Chelsea at home just a fortnight ago. And, we said from the start for De Zerbi when he was appointed, things will be quite entertaining in the long term. Goals will be pretty prevalent, and it can take time for markets to adjust to these kind of things. And I do think there's value in goals this weekend because Brighton matches should be quite entertaining. So we're getting 185 on both teams scoring against Villa on Sunday, and that appeals to me. I guess the big negative or the big caveat is the fact that Villa's road record this season has been rotten, as Adrian says, but also the fact it's Unai Emery second game, an away underdog. Wouldn't be too surprising if he sort of shut things down here.
But, first, I mean that 4-2-2-2, by the way, when they haven't got the ball, is going to be solid. It will be solid. They will soak up pressure because look at the 2 wide guys, Ramsey and Buendia, 2 of the best off the ball attack-minded midfielders in the division, no doubt about that. So he's thought about this, and he's effectively got 4 ball winners in his midfield, protecting a very compact and narrow back 4. So yeah, it might not be easy to break them down on the road.
That is the worry. I'm just going to supersede it because De Zerbi's been in charge at Brighton for longer. Yeah. I think his plans are much firmer and ingrained in that team right now. And Villa were more front foot than I anticipated against Man United last weekend. They absolutely went for the kill from the very first whistle. I thought they were pretty expansive for the system, but they fielded. Jacob Ramsey was immense, really, and Buendia certainly seems to be enjoying his being given a run in the team as well. And look, Brighton have kept 1 clean sheet since August, so I thought the 185 was a nice price. I definitely think Villa have enough quality in that team to score, whether it's in the counter attack or from set pieces or whatever it might be. But Brighton will absolutely go for it as much as they possibly can. So, I think there's a bit of buzz around Villa at the minute, and obviously Brighton too. So I'm hopeful we're going to see a decent game here, and an entertaining game. I thought both teams to score as 185. You're not going to get that too often in the future with Brighton involved.
Yeah, this is a tough one, and I think it might surprise you, but I am going to go with Adrian on Brighton because I just ingrained in me in Emery, and perhaps just parking the bus and Brighton eventually breaking them down. And I'm conflicted on Emery and how he'll do, because, and Adrian will attest this, some of Arsenal's greatest performances over the last 5 years came under him. The likes of Leicester at home, Fulham away stick out. So they were entertaining teams. So it would be very fascinating what Villa do in Emery, but we'll lock in for the podcast Brighton at 1.89. And if you want to combine the two, Brighton, both teams to score, given the nature of the exchange, those markets are proving quite popular on Matchbook currently. You can combine the two for a bigger price. So that would be Brighton and both teams to score. We'll move on to the final game. This is Fulham versus Manchester United, and this will be the last Premier League game until Stevens' Day or Boxing Day. And let's take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. You can currently back Fulham at 4.1, Manchester United odds on at 1.94, and the draw is available at 4.0. You can back both teams to score, yes, a short price, 1.64, no is 2.4. And the Asian handicap line gives Fulham half a goal start at 2.02, and the total is 3. We'll stick with you, Mark, on this one. It's the final game, as I touched on, and you're expecting goals to see us off into the World Cup.
Yeah, hoping so. I think Fulham will feel frustrated and angered at the way in which things finished at the Etihad last week. In line to pick up a point in that match, and controversial penalty goes against them. But I think perhaps Fulham need to look at their own performance, really, because they really didn't assert themselves well enough after playing against 10 men for most of that match, considering the position that they are in, trying to hold on to a positive result. I understand it, going away to Man City, it's a tough game, but that's a huge opportunity missed. Mitrovic was absent, which is a bit of a blow, but they did enough before the red card to suggest that they could be competitive in that game. But they tried to be compact and play on the counter against the City team, who just monopolise possession and tend to create chances at will. So I thought they could have been more effective against 10 men, and that's a shame, because they're unbeaten in 4 going into that game, and most of their success this season has been about being proactive, attacking teams, putting them under pressure. They've got a midfield who I think has been as good as any in the Premier League this season, but a defence that I think is questionable as well. And they only had 2 shots after the equaliser last weekend, and only 6 touches in the City box in the second half, which suggests that they are absolutely playing for a point when they could have actually
bottled it, Mark. That's what they did. They just weren't brave.
100%, and that's a shame, really. But all the anger towards that late penalty perhaps needs to be sort of directed at themselves for not being cavalier enough to try and go and win that game. But we don't know about Mitrovic, if he's available or not. Obviously, you want him involved. His goal record this season is insane. But Reed and Tete are suspended this weekend, which is a bit of a blow. But look, Fulham matches tend to equal goals this season. That's why I've gone down the over 2.75 route at 1.82. 3 or more goals in 12 of their 14 Premier League games since promotion. 11 of those matches have seen both teams scoring, and half have gone over 3.5. And they're playing a United team who absolutely have to try and bounce back after what was a bit of a horror show at Villa. Incredibly passive during that first 45 minutes, at least. Inaccurate in the ball and deservedly well beaten. They were missing Varane, Bruno and Anthony, 3 players who have been pretty influential in recent weeks. But I think Bruno's the only one who's confirmed as being available because he was suspended. But Dalot is now suspended as well, which is another blow because he's been one of their better players this season too. So, with the lack of forward options, Ronaldo started, and I think we all probably are singing from the same hymn sheet and saying it in and out of possession. He probably is a liability for United these days. So, for the time being, I'm quite happy to skip odds on quotes on United winning this match and instead just look towards the goals. The vast majority of United's eye-catching performances have come at Old Trafford, whereas they're ranked 9th on expected points in away games, 10th on expected goals process playing away. I just fancy Fulham to really sort of stick it to United this weekend. I think their score absolutely conceding as well. So with that in mind, I can see 3 or more goals. And I just think Fulham can drag United into quite an open encounter here, and we should see a decent end to the Premier League.
You mentioned that Yeah, you mentioned Dallo being suspended there, and I've seen this on social media. Cancelo was suspended, but he got to serve a suspension in the League Cup, and that's due to him getting a red card.
True.
You can bring it to another competition. But Dallo is actually suspended for the Premier League game because he's on 5 yellows, which means that has to take place in that competition. Which is, I love that kind of stuff, to be honest with you. I saw a few fans giving out on social media, so I wanted to point it out for anyone else that loves that kind of stuff. Adrian, you're in agreement with the goals angle here?
Yeah, for all the same reasons, really. United have scored in all but one away game, so they're always worth at least one. They haven't scored multiple goals on the road often enough this season. I think they'll have a chance to here. I really do. Harrison Reed's absence will make a difference. I think that even Tete at right back, I think they've got a lot of injury problems in that position. And as we know, United can fly down that left-hand side, potentially with Rashford and Shaw. So I think that they can make hay down there. Tim Ream has had a good season, unexpectedly so, but I worked on the game against City last weekend, and Julian Alvarez had him on toast. I mean, he every time he produced a piece of movement, he tied him in knots. So I think that United, if they're on it, then they can score goals here. After defeats, Ten Hag's got a tune out of his players. This is the last 3 defeats. Obviously, they lost 2 on the spin at the start, but the last 3 defeats have all been followed by decent wins. So yeah, I'm not. Why am I not surprised by that? Because he's so hard, isn't he? Or so hard looking, Eric Ten Hag, that I wouldn't dare lose 2 matches in a row either if I was a Manchester United player. So yeah, I think United have got to be favourites here, but I'd want to see the Fulham team sheet and see if Mitrovic's name was on it before back in Manchester United. So yeah, goals for me. Fulham are better on the front foot. There will be regret for not going for it at Manchester City. At Craven Cottage, they've shown bravery really, and I think that's their best form of defence really in the game is to take it to United, which should be a recipe for a decent game. I think the only way we don't get plenty of goals here is if a little bit like that Fulham Everton game, the goalkeepers are on fire. That can always hurt you, can't it? But I do fancy goals.
It's been really refreshing seeing Fulham take or attack the Premier League in the manner they have, because I don't know about you, Adrian, but I found last season, squad-wise, they were hands down the best team in that division in the Championship. But in terms of what we saw and what they served up, I was quite often underwhelmed because it was all about control and just kind of grinding teams really, and just having the Mitrovic X factor in their armory. Whereas this time around, they've been very front foot. Yeah,
totally unexpected, but it's paid off. Yeah, they've been in the top half, haven't they, for the entirety of this season so far? So yeah, well done, Fulham. Not so good last week. I'd like them to sort of give it some on Sunday, and we should be in for a decent match.
Yeah, we'll lock that in. I think that's an overs play is a good shout there. Over 2 3/4 goals at 1.82. But do keep an eye on that injury news with Mitrovic as well. And we'll just do a quick recap of what we covered so far. So that's the bet in the Fulham versus Manchester United game. Brighton versus Villa. We've leaned towards Brighton and Adrian at 1.9, but Mark made a good shout on the both teams to score angle there as well. Wolves versus Arsenal. We've gone Arsenal and both teams to score no. 2.7 currently. Newcastle Chelsea, it's Newcastle plus 0.0 or draw no bet at 1.71. And we're gone for a goals angle again in Spurs versus Leeds. That's over 2 3/4 goals at 1.79. Inside that match. Oh, sorry.
Are we not locking in the 25-1 shot?
Oh, sorry. Yes. So this is Mark's, and it is worth pointing out again. Leeds halftime, Tottenham full time, and so cheer on. No, it's Leeds halftime, Spurs full time. 25-1, so well worth checking out the halftime full-time markets. But yeah, we're not locking that in as an official bet, unfortunately, because it would just won't win, and then the record won't be good. But insights.matchbook.com Thursday afternoon, your best place to find all the bet recaps, and we'll cover all the lads' bets coming up as well. Before we get into the EFL and the European bets, we'll just point you very quickly in the way of a sign-up offer that we currently have at Matchbook. If you don't have a Matchbook account and you're looking to set one up, if you've tried the exchange before on other platforms and you want to give it a go, it's £30 welcome offer we currently have. It's money back as a free bet if your first bet loses. That's a £30 welcome offer. Money back as free bet if your first bet loses. Enter the bonus code INSIGHTS30. That's INSIGHTS30, and to place a risk-free bet. And if you want to put on one of the guys' best bets, the bet's coming up here. It's completely risk-free, and given that it's the World Cup coming up as well, probably a great time to check out Matchbook Betting Exchange. So we'll touch on EFL. By the way, I've seen a few comments there. Do get them in, guys, if you're watching the live stream or you're watching back, and do hit that like button, subscribe. Would be much appreciated. Adrian, Burnley versus Blackburn, two teams that are going well at the Championship this year, but you're going for an unders play here.
Context is everything. Yeah, top two in the Championship, local derby, not a local derby that they've seen a lot of in recent years. Early kickoff on a Sunday.
Beware the early kickoff. So
go low. I think go low here. I mean, talking of long shots, you can back the 0-0 here at 11.0, so 10-1. So that isn't the worst shout in the world. It's a must not lose, really, for both sets of fans. Both sets of players will know that. Blackburn have a good ability to keep clean sheets. 8 in 20 Championship matches this season. A lot of those have come at home, I must say, but they have, they're capable of shutting down the opposition. They're not a high-scoring team, Blackburn, and their matches on the road have only averaged 1.9 this season. So Blackburn on the road, not been involved in too many crazy games. Burnley have been involved in some crazy games of late, but that's a new trend. Earlier on in the season, they were involved in a lot of low-scoring matches, particularly at Turf Moor, where they tend to just dominate possession and sort of control it, a little bit like Manchester City. I mean, it seems so strange saying that about Burnley, but this is Vincent Kompany's Burnley. So yeah, huge game, top two. Only actually over the course of the season, even though Burnley have been involved in some crazy games of late, only 40% have gone over 2.5. 45% for Rovers have gone over 2.5. So the odds are stacked in our favour across the season as a whole that it can go under. But because of the nature of the game and what it means to both clubs, especially around who's going to be top ahead of this break, I just see a very cagey game here, very cagey. So yeah, under 2.5 for me.
Yeah, under 2.5, 1.83, and depending on how you like to bet as a punter, 0-all could be one to keep an eye on there as well. Your second game, your second EFL bet, Adrian, is Forest Green versus Wickham from League One, and you're going for the opposite here, an overs play.
Yeah, look, if you Mark loves France, doesn't he? Loves Ligue 1 for goals. If you're that kind of punter, and I think it's fun to be that way, isn't it? League 1 is the place. Avoid League 2, not a high scoring division. The Championship hasn't been particularly high scoring this season either, but League 1 is. A lot of overs have come in that division this season, and yeah, this game, Forest Green against Wickham, just has that look. For both teams, 59% of their matches have come in over, and that rises to 62% if you just count Forest Green home games and just count Wickham away games. So 62% isn't too bad, I don't think. Both teams to score is a regular as well, way over 50% for BTTS. Forest Green can't keep clean sheets, 1 in 17. So you'd imagine Wickham with Vokes and Mehmeti in pretty good form, they'll score at least 1, maybe 2. Wickham, for their money, they've only kept 5 clean sheets in 17. Not been as tight this season as they have been in the past. So yeah, Forest Green's home form hasn't been good, but Wickham aren't the force they were, in my opinion. So I think both teams can probably score here, and then we get ourselves a nice match. So yeah, in a division full of goals, these two are right towards the top end when it comes to overs and BTTS. So yeah, I'm taking it on over 2.5.
Yes, that's Forest Green versus Wickham over 2.5. Currently 1.83. You can back that. Mark, we're going for a League On bet here, but it's not a Control C, Control V overs or both teams to score angle here. You've got a bit of a match result and an unders angle. So talk to us a little bit.
Yeah, I'm getting on side with Lens, who have been one of the stories of the season in France. They're second behind PSG and 5 points clear of Rennes in third. They've won 10 of their first 14 games. They've got a perfect 7 from 7 record on home soil. They've recorded clean sheets in 7 of their opening 14 across all venues. They've actually conceded just 1 non-penalty goal in the last 8 games across all venues as well. So it's been quite a remarkable rise, really. And I'm surprised their head coach, Franck Hayes, hasn't been linked with Premier League jobs yet, because he's been overseeing just a fantastic transformation of what is quite a famous French club from the rubbles, really, punching well above their weight at the minute. And his long-term vision has been a real sort of asset for them too. So, they've been absolutely exceptional on home soil. Across all venues, they're top 4 for expected points and expected goals process. But at home, the numbers are even better. They're joint top alongside PSG for XG ratio and narrowly behind them on expected points as well, which is, for a team like Lens to be sort of even anywhere close to PSG is just testament to the work that's being done there. Happy to get them on side against the Clermont side on Saturday, who are a bit more open in their approach than Lens, but they've only managed 3 goals in 5 games against top half teams. 4 of those matches went under 3.5 goals, let alone under 4.5. And the opening day game against PSG is the only match that did kind of bust that under 4.5 goals record, but they were in a really sorry state at the start of the season. PSG absolutely exposed them. But Lens to win under 4.5 is 175. Each of their last 9 games have gone under 3.5 goals. 7 of those 9 games have gone under 2.5 goals. They're just rock solid at the back. They've got more than enough attacking flair in forward areas to win narrow games. And I think Clermont's last 12 games have gone under 4.5 goals. They've taken 1 point from 4 fixtures against the top 6. And considering we get 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, and 3-1 on our side, we're getting a nice increase on Lens to win the game at 1.44, so to 1.75, just to include that unders angle too. So, they are the hottest team in France right now, and I'm keen to get on board.
Yeah, 0.3 seems a big jump there for me. So we'll lock that in. Lens and under 4.5 goals versus Clermont, currently 1.75. And Mark touched on there, if you do want to boost the odds and you fancy a team and they're a little bit short, the match result and total goals is a good angle there. And the under 4.5 goals invariably, given how unlikely over 4.5 is usually, is a good way of getting that on side. Adrian, best bets time. And it's Accrington versus Sheffield Wednesday and over 1.5 goals. You want to combine Sheffield Wednesday and an overs angle here, which is currently 1.92.
I do, dipping back into the EFL. It's third place 20th. So that tells you the kind of seasons that these two clubs are having. Accrington are in really, really bad form at the moment. Bottom of the form table, just 1 point from their last 6 matches. During that run of 6 matches, they've scored 4 goals, conceded 16. So they're not in good shape. Sheffield Wednesday are flying high. They're aiming at promotion. If you look at Accrington's record against the biggest and best teams in the division this season, it's not good. They've played 5 of the top 7, lost all of them, and they've conceded 3 goals in 4 of those games and 2 in the other. So against the elite in League One, Accrington have come unstuck. And do you know what? You look at their stadium; it's a small ground up there. When a big club goes there, it turns into neutral territory effectively, or if the away disadvantage flips around, because there's every chance Sheffield Wednesday will have more fans there than Accrington, and I think that does make a difference, and it works against Accrington Stanley. Across the last 10 games, Sheffield Wednesday have been excellent, 21 points. Only Plymouth have accrued more, and their record against teams in the bottom half is outstanding. 1-9, drawn 2. Lost none. This is Wednesday actually against teams outside the top 8. So this is exactly the kind of fixture that they've been winning, and 6 of those 9 wins were over 1.5 as well. So I think Wednesday should be, they are heavy favourites here. Combine it with over 1.5, as we do with a lot of these bets, and I think you get some value.
Yeah, just over 10 to 11, 1.92 currently. That's Sheffield Wednesday and over 1.5 goals away to Accrington. Mark, your best bet at Matchbook Insights. You have a positive ROI once again this year. You've been in great form and you filed your copy this morning. That's now live. And one of the bets here is going to be your best bet for the weekend.
Yeah, still attempting to try and extract a bit of both teams to score value out of France. It's getting harder and harder by the week, but this one just stuck out like a sore thumb, really, because league-wide, we're getting a 64% return for both teams to score in Ligue 1 this season. And on Sunday, we basically got 2 of the sort of chief protagonists playing against each other in Strasbourg and Lorient, and both teams to score is available at 173. Now, the raw numbers here are exceptionally strong. Combined, Strasbourg and Lorient have played 28 games in the French top flight. 22 of those have featured both teams scoring. That's a 79% hit rate. So obviously, this isn't the way to price up games, but if you crudely turn that percentage hit rate into implied odds, we'd be getting a 1.27 shot. Strasbourg, BTTS in 11 of 14. They've got on paper one of the best attacks in the division, and they scored at 11 of 14, but managed just 1 clean sheet. They're massively underperforming expectations. This is effectively a do-or-die match for the head coach, Julien Stéphan, because last week they blew a 2-0 lead to lose 4-2 at lowly Ajaxio, which was unforgivable, really. They conceded all 4 goals before half-time as well. But it means their last 7 results have read 2-1, 1-3, 2-3, 0-3, 2-2, 2-2, 4-2. It's been quite the ride, really, following Strasbourg this season. They're playing a Lorient team who have been one of the surprise packages, but they've regressed a little bit lately. Still, they've seen both teams scoring in 11 of 14. They've scored themselves in 13 of those and managed just 3 clean sheets despite sitting inside the top 6. Last weekend, they gave PSG a really good run for their money, lost the match 2-1, and they've actually conceded twice more in the last 3 games on the spin as well. Away from home, 4 of 7 have gone over 3.5. They've scored at least twice themselves in 5 of those 7 away days as well. So this match just looks primed for goals. Strasbourg are desperate at the back and desperate for a result. Lorient in fine form, really confident, scoring goals, but leaking them too. So expecting a decent entertainment in this match.
Yeah, that's Strasbourg versus Lorient. Both teams to score 1.73. We currently have a Matchbook. We're done, and we're also done for club football for the next 6 weeks. Apologies, tongue twister there. My thanks to Adrian, my thanks to Mark. We'll be back Tuesday, 5 o'clock, with a full World Cup outright previews covering a wide variety of markets. But until then, enjoy the club football this weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.